It's Mike, VA3MW, and I was asked to throw together a quick video on my 10 gig station. 10 gigs new to me. We had a bunch of people here in Toronto doing it, so I thought I'd give you a shot. So I'll take you through a tour and show you a couple of things that work for me. I'm still learning. I'm sure I've made 1,000 mistakes and people would have done it differently, but this is how I did it. So here's my story. Here's the work part of the shack, and yes, I would love it to be a little neater. I keep working on it, but I got a lot of stuff happening here. Simply put, I chose to use an ICOM 705 for the receiver IF part because of the waterfall on the ICOM 705, which makes it great when you're trying to find a signal. I also chose to use the Down East Microwave 3-watt model of the Transverter, which I bolted to the crossarm on the dish. And how did I do that? Well, I have some garage tools. So I tapped it. These are long, I think they're quarter 20s or 1032s. I forgot which. There's a lot of room underneath. You have to be a little careful, but no big deal. That worked. Paul, W1GH said, was still selling these 10 24 gig feed horns. So I scored one of those. I wasn't planning to ever use 24 gigs, so I just capped the other end and made it my mount point. I made this bracket. Again, all I have are garage tools, although I did find a vice brake for, wasn't very much, $25 here in Canada at Princess Auto, and that allows me to make precise bends. How did I figure out the feed horn? Well, to be honest, I put it exactly where this dish original feed horn was. And I sketched it out in paper, and it took a couple hours of tinkering, but I finally got it where I want it. And I'm probably wrong here, but I was told that, you want it to be about there at the bottom. And so that's what I did. And I used the string method where you actually tie a string to here, here, and here, and you hold it there and you mark it, and that's where you want to be. There's articles on the internet about how to do that. On the 705, I used the ram mount solution, which is just gear clamped here, which made this work fairly quickly. My keying off the 705 is a ham radio workbench amplifier keying interface for the 705. I don't think George made more than a few of those, but I got one. But you can make your own. You really should put some sort of keying buffer. And the purists will probably yell at you that I should actually be using a sequencer, but so far so good, because the TR relay, which controls, I'm using common IF, is from Down East Microwave. You can see it here, is mounted right here on the back of the transverter. And there's a keying line for it right over here on the side. So it makes it really simple. What other cool things did I add? I wanted to be able to see the current. I've got your standard battery pack here on the floor. I put a level, glued it on this. This is a 1 foot square piece of aluminum plate, 1/4 inch thick. I happen to have it. It turned out really well because, and I'm not the best machinist. In fact, I sort of don't even know what I don't know yet. But I was able to drill and tap 3 screws to hold the dish in plate. It's a standard DSS dish. So that worked out okay. I put a terminal strip here just to make things easy to wire to and to debug. And I put a GPS DO in here. This is the $100 ones off eBay. It works great, but it takes about 10 minutes to lock in. So I've got a Leo Bondar one coming, which locks in about 10 seconds. But when I'm first starting up, I just disconnect it like that. And that goes to the transverter. And the is it DGILO on here is incredibly accurate already. So that gets me usually within 10, within a kilohertz on first startup. And let's walk around to the other side of the feed horn. And again, here's the 10 meg reference and the push to talk line and the keying for the TR relay. And that allowed me to keep this really short. So where did I get this cable? Well, you want to leverage your friends and see if they have such a thing. So I have this nice piece of flexi. It'd be nice if it was a little bit shorter, but beggars can't be choosers. It works really well. GPS antenna is here. And I mounted this all on a Surveyor tripod that I got locally here in Toronto at Sale. The people in Toronto know where that is, for $72. And it's got a big threaded thingy right down, right down there. That's a 5/8 inch nut, essentially, that I just tapped again. I had to buy a tap. And if you don't know how to tap, it's not really complicated. There are some practices. And I just screw it on top. So I can actually, other than the big battery, carry this whole mess out to a field in one trip. So that's my 10 gig station. And does it work? Yeah, it does actually. I've made 3 grids so far in the first week. I can hear the beacon, which is 25 kilometers away, off a reflection off an apartment building. I'll show you that video in a minute. And that allowed me to figure out what this angle is. How much down tilt? Well, by listening to the beacon one day, I went out and eBay or Amazon is great. I found this digital level, and it's magnetic, and it sits here. And with this, pretty darn close to 90 degrees. That's 89.75 degrees, and we're level here. I found that I'm hearing signals on the horizon now. There's probably a bit of error there, and I could probably fine-tune my feed horn better, which I will hope to do at some time in the future, maybe in the summertime. And but right now, one of my farthest through snow scatter, and I'll show you that video or what it sounded like, was 120 kilometers away. So it's working. It's a 100 amp load meter that will show me voltage of the battery and how much current I'm drawing. And I find that incredibly helpful. That if I'm in transmit and I'm drawing what I want to see, which is just over 3 amps total, that things are probably working okay. Because I'm a little shy on test equipment to know I don't have a 10 gig watt meter or anything to do any 10 gig measurements. So I have to assume that things are generally functional. And then because I am in the hobby aircraft world, I thought there was a couple of times when I might want to get out there and really quickly and operate. So I have a 4S battery here for one of my planes, actually a drone. Now, the guys that fly know about 4S batteries. This is almost over 16 volts, which is too much for this system. So again, I went to Amazon. I got a voltage regulator. You can Google it and find it. It's anywhere between 10 and 36 volts in and 12. It's actually 12.3 volts out up to 5 amps. I put an XT60 connector out to connect the battery. I put a power pole on the other end. I just got it. I haven't tested it. I don't know how much RF noise there is. We actually use these in airplanes too when there isn't any. So I suspect it's probably going to be okay. This is a 5 amp hour battery, so I should be good for a couple of quick QSOs. So that's the 10 gig station in a nutshell. This is how I did it. There's lots of other ways to do it. What's critical that I was told is to keep this feed line as short as possible, and that you will ultimately have to fine tune your feed horn, which I will do, and make sure it's impossible to transmit without the transverter going into transmit. I have a checklist that I go through. I highly recommend a checklist. I'll ultimately print it off and put it right here that says before turning on, make sure, in my case, I've got this send line connected. This is the DC power line if I want to charge the 705. And then I found these were incredibly hard to read, so I just printed, I have a brother label maker that does some cool things. So send, tune, key, and power. So I know where everything is, and I did the other side because ICOM's labels are a little hard to read. And on the other side, of course, we have speaker, mic, and where the micro USB card is. So, oh yeah, the other thing is, if you've got a 705, make sure you've got this micro USB card installed. It's really handy for recording all your QSOs for later notes. And I have to admit, it looks really good. And I don't have it wired up, but if you can turn on, see the scope, I can see, on the beacons, and if you're fortunate to have a beacon, that'll really help you out. So there's the tour of my 10 gig Rover. Ultimately, after I finish playing with it for the next summer, I will either sell it, lend it to somebody, or mount it on my roof, in which case it'll get reconfigured again. And I'll use it with my Flex 6600. So this is Hugh calling Peter ELE. And he's up in Bracebridge in FN05, and I'm in FN03, and we're doing snow scatter. And it's about 0. quick summary of 10 gig. I'm pretty pumped about how it's worked out for me. I've been in the hobby not very long, 47 years or so, and I'm still doing new stuff. Beautiful thing about this hobby. Don't ever stop inventing and trying things and failing at things, because every one of these is a great learning experience. Thanks for taking the time to watch 73.